Imagine discovering that a common, brightly colored powder sitting right there in your kitchen pantry could actually hold the key to some of modern medicine's most exciting pharmacological breakthroughs. I mean, you'd probably assume we already know absolutely everything there is to know about a spice that's been traded for thousands of years, right? Well, when scientists started putting this ancient botanical under the microscope, they found a complexity that is fundamentally reshaping our understanding of natural medicine. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are about to unpack the surprisingly deep scientific, chemical, and agricultural data surrounding turmeric, or as it's known scientifically, Curcuma Longa.
It's a question that has completely captivated pharmacologists around the globe. Modern researchers are investigating this everyday spice for everything from fighting systemic oxidative stress, which is essentially the molecular rusting of our cells, to halting cellular damage at a microscopic level. So it's no longer just about flavoring your food. It's really about unpacking a highly complex metabolic powerhouse that defends biological systems in ways we are honestly only just beginning to map out.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our clear roadmap for the Explainer today. First, we'll meet the golden spice. Second, we'll explore its phytochemical powerhouse. Third, we'll break down the pharmacological health benefits. And fourth, we'll look at cultivation and genetics.
Let's jump into Section 1, Meet the Golden Spice. This is where we establish our botanical baseline. To truly understand the science here, we have to first understand the anatomy of the plant itself. Curcuma longa is a perennial herb belonging to the ginger family. If you wanted to find it growing in the wild, you'd need to look in tropical climates across Asia. But the real magic isn't up top in its oblong leaves or its yellow flowers. The true medicinal goldmine lies underground. If you dig it up, you find these fleshy, root-like stems called rhizomes. When those are boiled, cleaned, and dried, they yield that vibrant, characteristic yellow powder we call turmeric.
Long before it was standardized into modern supplements, this rhizome was an absolute cornerstone of Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine. Traditional healers didn't just use it for flavor. The ethnomedical applications were incredibly diverse. They relied on it as a systemic anti-inflammatory agent, a go-to treatment for jaundice and colic, relief for menstrual difficulties, and it was even applied topically in poultices to relieve acute localized pain. For centuries, healers knew exactly what it did, even if they didn't quite have the tools to see how it worked.
And that brings us to this really staggering number, 427. Modern researchers have isolated and identified approximately 427 distinct chemical compounds from curcuma species. This isn't just one single active ingredient doing all the heavy lifting. This plant is a remarkably complex chemical factory.
So let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds, the phytochemical powerhouse. Time to look under the microscope.
To understand how Curcuma longa works, you have to know the primary chemical classes driving all these benefits. The most famous, for sure, are the curcuminoids, which include the highly steady compound curcumin. But guys, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The rhizome is absolutely packed with volatile oils like turmerones, which are being studied right now for neurological benefits. Then we have sesquiterpenoids. What's crazy here is that entirely new complex molecular structures, like the recently identified bisacchachrone D through G, are literally still being discovered and classified by researchers today.
Because curcumin is so famous, the supplement industry often just isolates it, assuming the purified compound is obviously the best way to get the health benefits. But this brings us to a fascinating bit of scientific drama from studies led by researcher H.A. Abu-Rezik. They decided to put this to the test, pitting highly purified curcumin directly against a crude, unrefined curcuminoid extract to see which one was actually better at protecting the body.
Now, what's really interesting about this outcome is who actually won the chemical battle. In tests where severe oxidative stress was chemically induced, it was the crude turmeric extract that performed better. It was significantly more efficient at restoring the viability of our immune cells, specifically T lymphocytes, than the highly purified curcumin. This strongly points to a powerful synergistic effect. The plant's compounds are literally designed to work together as a team, and when we isolate just one single piece, we might actually be missing out on the full biological potential.
All right, Section 3. Pharmacological health benefits. Let's look at the systemic biological effects.
So what is this actually doing in the body? Well, this data perfectly illustrates how Curcuma longa defends us at a cellular level across vastly different systems. Looking at neuroprotection, studies show it prevents heavy metal toxicity by inhibiting specific enzymes in the brain. For hepatoprotective, meaning liver protection, it defends against severe chemical toxins by actually enhancing the liver's own natural cleanup crew, which are enzymes like SOD and catalase.
And for cardiovascular health, it induces dose-dependent hypotension, meaning it lowers blood pressure by physically blocking calcium from rushing into blood vessel cells and causing them to constrict.
We can see another incredibly specific biological mechanism when we look at gastric health. A pivotal 2005 study walked through exactly how Curcuma Longa protects the stomach from ulcers, and it's a fascinating step-by-step process. Step 1, the extract is ingested. Step 2, components within the extract actively compete for and block H2 histamine receptors right there in the stomach lining. And step 3, because those receptors are blocked, the secretion of damaging gastric acid is significantly inhibited. It essentially acts like a natural molecular shield.
And the biological potential just keeps going. Additional clinical evidence shows it significantly reduces hemoglobin A1C in diabetic patients. It even has strong acaricidical properties, meaning it can literally kill parasitic soft ticks. It demonstrates potent antifungal activity against agricultural pathogens. And crucially, it calms the human immune system by turning down the volume on specific inflammatory signals like IL-6 and TNF-alpha. This incredibly broad spectrum of action is exactly why it's such a massive focus in modern pharmacognosy.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, Cultivation and Genetics. Growing the golden spice.
Here's the catch, though. You don't just get these amazing chemicals automatically. Agricultural science tells us that how and when we grow this plant completely changes its chemical yield. An amazing 2025 study by Lau and colleagues tracked exactly where the turmeric plant spends its energy during its life cycle. Look at this allocation. Before October, the plant is entirely focused on above-ground growth. A massive 75% of its dry matter is dedicated just to building leaves and stems, capturing sunlight and building its engine. Only 25% of its energy is down below in the roots.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. The dramatic physiological shift that occurs later in the season is incredible. By January, the plant has essentially flipped upside down. It pumps all that accumulated biomass straight underground, with 70% of its dry matter now concentrated in the highly valuable tubers and rhizomes ready for harvest. Timing is absolutely everything here.
Now, to achieve those massive underground yields, farmers can't just guess. That same study revealed the precise macronutrient demand for optimal growth. The plant is incredibly hungry for potassium, requiring nearly 1,500 milligrams per plant, followed closely by nitrogen and then phosphorus. This proves that a stage-specific fertilization strategy, heavily prioritizing potassium, is completely non-negotiable if you want a medicinally potent crop, which totally explains why the quality of turmeric supplements on the market can vary so wildly.
Beyond farming techniques, genetics play a massive role. Consider the genetic mystery of the Rapa Nui ecotypes. Researchers analyzed specific strains of Curcuma Longa from Polynesia, labeled MR1 and MR2. Because of their unique, isolated environment, these specific genetic variations developed incredibly high polyphenol concentrations and uniquely potent pathways for inhibiting COX-2. Now, COX-2 is the exact same pain and inflammation enzyme targeted by over-the-counter painkillers like ibuprofen. This shows us that a unique environment can forge completely unique medicinal strengths in the exact same species of plant.
So, the crucial point is summarized perfectly right here by the Leo study. Unlocking the true power of the golden spice isn't just about grinding up a root. It requires true precision agriculture. You have to match the plant's shifting nutrient demands exactly to its life cycle if you want to maximize the curcuminoids and essential oils we've been discussing today.
And this really brings our narrative full circle. For thousands of years, traditional healers knew that turmeric worked. Today, through modern lab technologies like mass spectrometry, we aren't replacing that ancient knowledge, we're validating it. We are finally seeing the incredibly complex metabolome, these hundreds of interacting chemical compounds, that makes this ancient medicine so profoundly effective.
Which leaves us with a pretty thrilling reality. Even with all our modern tools, we are still discovering entirely new molecules in this plant. With hundreds of chemical compounds still being mapped and understood, what other life-changing breakthroughs remain hidden just beneath the soil? The science of Curcuma Longa is far from over. In many ways, it's just beginning. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your curiosity growing.